Hi everyone, welcome to this at-home yoga practice. Today we'll be working through a 20-minute gentle Hatha practice for your hips. One thing to note is just to have a couple of blocks or anything you can substitute blocks with at around the top of your mat. That's where those props will be most helpful. And other than that, we can dive in and begin with Juan and Diego. So Juan, we'll start in child's pose. So when you're ready, just coming into a comfortable variation of that with your knees together or your knees wide. If you happen to have really tight hips, a nice thing to do is you could slide the blocks under your pelvis or even slide a rolled up blanket or something, but you can see that Juan's hips and heels are kind of settling towards each other. Just being mindful of the knees as well while you're here. And then starting to deepen and lengthen that breath. Child's pose is a really interesting place to notice the breath along the back of your body. So you might start to feel like there's a little shifting in the back of your rib cage, kind of around the shoulder blades as well. And as you take these first few slow, deep breaths, you might check in and just take note of how your pelvis is actually feeling today. So it's a place in the body that can tend to feel really, really tight for various reasons. Some of them is that we end up sitting a lot in the day for work. The other is that you might be a runner or a biker, and just that sort of constant repetitive motion of the legs and the hips can cause a little bit of tightness. And so our practice today is just a way to gently kind of ease and unwind any of that tension in the body. And with that being said, now in this position, if your knees, hips, and ankles are feeling kind of okay here, you might start to just gently rock the pelvis side to side. Just a little, like this little shifting of your hips back and forth. So just this little movement of the pelvis back and forth. And then we'll take that idea, that same idea of sort of this fluid, watery-like motion of the pelvis, and as Juan starts making his way to tabletop position, so coming up to hands and knees, and then we'll set up on hands and knees so the fingers spread wide, your wrists under shoulders, your knees sort of under your hips, and then letting your pelvis kind of be your guide here. So the hips just starting to shift around and to move around. And it could be in this sort of tilting back and forth motion, but also in a kind of hula hooping circular movement. And you might notice, just as what's happening with Juan here, that other parts of the body start getting involved. So the movement beginning in the pelvis and then sort of expanding out to shoulders, along the spine, down through the legs. And it's a really nice way to move the body when you find kind of a central part of the body and then move from there to help that be sort of the instigator of movement. So we'll take a couple more breaths here, 2 or 3 more breaths, moving the body, and just a really nice way to see how you're feeling today, and noticing any creaks or cracks or tensions or tightness. And then we'll eventually come to stillness on the mat. And then just check in with your hands, so really feeling this nice wide spread through your fingers, really steady and stable in the upper body. Beginning to draw the belly up and in, and feeling this sort of stable sensation in your shoulders and in your spine as you keep your right leg bent and just lift your right knee up away from the mat. So you're just lifting the right leg with the knee bent, pressing the sole of the foot up towards the ceiling. The rest of your body really steady and stable, and just move your right thigh in your right hip socket. So you just start to move almost like you're sort of painting with your right knee. And you might notice that the shoulders try and shift a little bit. This is super normal. See if you can really plug down through the pads of your fingers. And the movement will be really different for everybody. So some people will be making some bigger movements, some making really small, kind of subtle, tiny movements here. And it's also just a really helpful practice to notice the quality of the movement or the sensation of that right thigh shifting in that right hip socket. I'm doing this just for about 1 more breath. And then finding your way back to tabletop position. And then shifting to the other side. So your left leg stays bent, The sole of the foot presses up, so the leg is bent here, and then just seeing if you can isolate the movement in that left thigh and hip socket. And it sometimes feels so different side to side, so it's normal to be a little tighter on one side of the body, so the movement might look and feel really different. Checking in with that quality of the movement, the feeling in your body of the movement on this side of your body. Staying as steady as you can in the shoulders and the spine. And taking about one more breath here. And then coming back to a tabletop position. From here, if you want to just reset your hands, you can just sort of find them again on your mat. And then keeping the belly engaged, start to walk your knees back a few inches so your thighs are on an angle and you're in what's known as a half plank position. And you'll notice the belly start to fire up a little bit here to help support that shape in your spine. Plug your hands really firmly into the mat. You might press the mat away a little bit to begin rounding the upper back slightly. And then from here, shifting back with an exhale breath to an extended child's pose. Your hands stay where they are. It's just the movement of your hips back towards your heels. So it will feel a little different maybe than that first child's pose, but the pelvis kind of driving this movement back. So there's this nice stretch also in the upper body as the hip shift backwards. Just take a moment here, just feel what this is like in your body and get really firm and steady through your hands. And then with your next inhale breath, we'll shift to a modified up dog. So the pelvis leading the movement as it starts to rise up away from the heels. Hands stay plugged. Belly stays engaged, and then your hips melt down towards the mat as you open your chest and look forward. And then use the breath to come back to that extended child's pose. So it's like an expansion of cat-cow. Same type of movement with breath, but you're shifting forwards and backwards from the pelvis a little more this time. And we'll take about 4 rounds of this movement forwards and backwards. Go at your own pace, take your time, and you're just shifting as much as makes sense for your body in and out of these two shapes. So be really mindful of your low back, of any difficult or uncomfortable sensations in your knees. You can always adjust here. And those of you who practice up dog with the knees lifted, if at any moment your body feels ready to explore that, the tops of the feet pressing down and the knees lifting, this is also a lovely thing to explore. And take about one more round of movement, one more round of breath here in and out of these two shapes. And then the next time that you come back to this extended child's pose, you can choose to stay there for a few breaths. If you're ready to explore a downward dog, you might tuck the toes under and lift your hips up towards the ceiling. And then just notice in your downward dog the sensation in your hands. So this lovely wide spread through your fingers, pressing down through the thumb and first finger, especially here. And then with a little bend in your knees, seeing if you can tilt your sit bones up towards the ceiling. So there's a little bit of tilting through the pelvis, and use that to find a little bit more length along your spine. Heels could be super lifted away from the mat. This is normal for some bodies. Take another breath here. And then looking forward, bend your knees. If you're still in child's pose, come to hands and knees and take as many steps as you need to walk to a standing forward fold at the top of your mat. Your feet about inner hip width apart, so that's roughly 2 fist distance between your feet if you're not familiar. Knees can bend as much as they would like to, and hands resting on the mat or maybe clasping opposite elbows or holding the backs of your legs here. Even here, just like in downward dog, a little tilt of your sit bones up just to find some length through the pelvis, down through your hamstrings, your head relaxing if it makes sense. For your neck to do so, you might move your head side to side, just letting go of any tension that sort of gathers there. Take another breath here in standing forward fold. And then slowly ragdolling, rolling up to stand. So letting your arms be heavy, your head relaxed, stacking your spine as you come all the way up, and then just give your shoulders a nice loop up, back, settle them down, open the chest, and Tadasana Mountain Pose. Letting your palms spin forward a little, closing your eyes and taking 2 slow deep breaths here. And then we'll open the eyes. Just take a moment to shift the blocks or your block substitutes to either side at the top of your mat. And then as you stand it around the top of your mat with your feet inner hip distance apart, root down through the toes and the heels and use your next inhale breath to sweep your arms up. So you're lengthening upwards, and take the exhale to fold down into forward fold. Inhale, slide the hands to your shins, lengthen your spine halfway, press the sit bones back. Exhale, fold down, fingertips down, low lunge, right foot stays, left toe step to the back of your mat. Lower your left knee down, pat as needed, and then inhale, sweep up with your arms, so start to lengthen upwards with your fingertips. Settle down into your hips, and then really kind of root down through those toes so you feel your legs working to support you here in this lunge. Your right hip rolling back, your left hip squaring forward a little. And then you might even sort of soften places like your shoulders, the muscles around your eyes, or the tip of your tongue, any gripping where it doesn't need to be. Take one more inhale breath here. And then use the exhale breath to bring the fingertips down. Reach for your blocks. Shift the blocks back just about a foot behind your right heel on any height that works for you. And then half split, begin to lengthen your right leg, shift the right hip back. And if it works in your body, you might flex the right toes towards you. If it doesn't, keep your right foot flat on your mat. You can bend your right knee as much as needed here. And one option is to stay upright, really long and lengthened through the upper body. The other is to begin folding down over that right leg a little more. The sensation might shift or intensify a little here. So really aware and mindful of your breath. Mindful of the sensation in the back of your right leg, so we're not overstretching or it's not uncomfortable. And we'll take one more round of breath. And then slowly releasing, so shifting the hands forward or the blocks forward, bring the right foot flat to your mat again. And then we'll come into Warrior Two, so you could take the blocks out to the sides, tuck the back toes under, lift the knee, flatten that back foot, about 85, 90 degrees, and then windmill up with your arms. So as you press down through your feet, use all that strength and stability to send the arms wide on either side of you. Keeping your right knee connected on top of ankle. If you notice that it's rolling in towards the big toe, just guiding it out a little bit. Press down through the feet, and then use that energy from your legs to lengthen up through the sides of your waist so you feel a little bit more upright and alert in your upper body. And there's this lovely deep bend through that front leg. So really getting a nice stretch for the pelvis here. We'll keep the legs the same, just the upper body moving into Exalted Warrior. So inhale, turn the right palm up, and exhale, lift the right fingers, take the left hand somewhere along your back leg. And notice if your right leg lengthened quite a bit, see what it's like to keep bending into that right thigh. So finding that same Warrior Two shape in those legs. Take an inhale breath here. And then exhale, bring the hands down to your mat, pick the back heel up, and step back to Downward Facing Dog. So as you find Downward Dog, lift your hips up towards the ceiling so you've got lots of length through your spine. Just settle here for a couple of breaths, check in. How are you feeling? How is your body breathing? And then with your next inhale breath, look forward, bend your knees. And exhale, stepping yourself to a forward fold again. From here, inhale, hands to shins, lengthen halfway. So feel that length through your spine. Exhale, fold back down. And then inhale, sweep up to stand this time. So sweep the arms up, lengthen up through fingers. And then exhale, bring the palms to your chest. Let the arms relax by your sides. Mountain pose for a breath. Just a moment here to check in. And then inhale, sweep up again with your arms, reaching up. Exhale, folding down into your forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift to lengthen your spine. Exhale, fold down. Bring the fingertips down, low lunge left side. Left foot stays, right toe step back. Right knee softly lowers down, and then inhale, rise up with the upper body. Start to sweep up and really feel tons of support underneath you from the way your feet connect to the mat, that rooting, and then that length in the upper body and shoulders relaxing, even imagining the tips of your fingers softening a little here so we can let go of gripping and holding, letting the pelvis soften into the shape. Let's take a deep inhale breath. And then exhale, fingers down for half split. Take a hold of your blocks, shift the blocks back, and begin to lengthen your left leg. Again, left foot can stay flat. You could also flex the left toes towards you and roll your left hip back, your right hip forward, just like you do in a lunge here. Option one is to stay upright in your upper body. The other is to fold down over that left leg. And the sensation can be really different side to side. So just take a moment and see if this makes sense for you. Adjust as needed and connect quite deeply to your breath. Let's take about one more round of breath. We'll come back towards the lunge, so shift the hands or the blocks forward, flatten the left foot, take the blocks out to the sides, and then warrior two. Tuck the right toes, lift the knee, flatten the foot down, and then windmill the arms out wide on either side of you. Again, it can feel really different side to side, so make some adjustments for your body. And being really mindful that your left knee is connected on top of ankle, so lots of stability for these knee joints today. Press down through the feet and then draw that energy up through the sides of your waist. So even those muscles between your ribs might feel like they're expanding and opening a little bit more here. One more breath like this. And then exalted warrior, legs stay the same. Inhale, left palm up, and exhale, lift through the left fingers as your backhand touches the thigh, the knee. Notice if your left leg lengthened a lot and just see what it's like to keep bending into that front thigh, keep lengthening through the upper body so you're feeling lots of space. Let's take a deep inhale breath. And then exhale, bring the hands down, step back to downward facing dog. And we're just here for a breath in downward dog. So seeing if you can feel length through your spine, the lift through your hips. And then we'll settle down into child's pose. So bringing the knees down, just letting your hips rest back towards your heels. And then from child's pose, start to roll yourself up. We'll come to seated, so swinging your legs out to one side and come to around the center of your mat, so there's enough room in front and behind you. We'll find our way into a hip stretch known as 90-90 pose. So as you lean to the right side, bring your right shin parallel to the top edge of your mat and your left shin parallel to the long edge. You can have as much space between your left knee and your right heel as you need to. And then once you're settled here, start to walk forward with your hands. Some of you might stay up on your hands. You could come to forearms, maybe even you can come down to your blocks. There's sometimes a little shift depending on where we're folding over the right leg. So those of you folding over to the knee might feel the shape a little differently than if you fold towards your right foot a little more. So you can play, and maybe today you're experimenting with shifting in the shape, noticing where it feels best in your body at this moment. And as you become a little more slow in your movements and static, your mind might start to take over a little more. So one way to stay really present with what's happening now is to focus on the sensations of breath. So noticing the feeling of inhaling, the sensation of exhaling. We'll take about 2 more slow, deep breaths here. And when you're ready, we'll find our way over to the other side. So we'll start walking ourselves back up. Lean to the right a little more so you can swing the left foot towards the top of the mat, and then all the way to the left as you find 90-90 on the left side of your body. When you're ready, settling forward, down to hands, to forearms, to blocks. Seeing where it makes sense for you today to settle over towards the foot, over towards the left knee. And really honing in on your breath, letting your breath be really important here. Just another 2 rounds of breathing. Slow, steady breaths. And taking all the time you need and finding your way back up. And slowly swinging the legs out, and as you extend the legs out in front, you might shake them out or stretch them out for a moment. And then we'll start to come down onto the back, so finding our way down slowly and mindfully. You can roll down, you could walk yourself down a little quicker as well. Once you're all the way down on your mat, hug your legs in towards you. And we'll find a happy baby shape. So from here, letting your knees go a little wider, and you might stay like that. That might be your happy baby today, or some of you might reach inside of the knees and hold your shins, your feet, your toes, your ankles, anything that's accessible. And this is a nice place where we can find just some final kind of space and room in the pelvis. So if movement helps you here, you could start shifting the body side to side, or lengthening one leg and then the other. And then we'll start to make our way into Shavasana. So coming into our final resting shape. For some of us, that's lying down on the back with or without props. If you're more comfortable sitting or in a child's pose shape or fetal position, you can definitely find your way there. Give yourself a few moments to arrive here, so to really feel what it's like to be in this shape. To let your eyes close, to let your tongue release any tension. And giving yourself a few moments of your day to rest here for as long as you would like to, knowing that you deserve this time to relax and to be still. Thank you for joining me today. Namaste.